The moment my daughter told me I wasn't allowed to sit at the Thanksgiving table I built with my own hands, she thought she was protecting her image. She had no idea she was cutting the last thread, holding her entire life together. Before I tell you how I dismantled their world in a single night, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment and tell me where you're listening from. My name is Hank Prescott. I am 67 years old. And this is the story of how my daughter learned that you don't betray the man who signs the checks. The Wednesday before Thanksgiving, I was in my kitchen heating up leftover chili when Meredith called. I hadn't heard from her in 3 weeks. That wasn't unusual. She only called when she needed something. But this time her voice had that sugary pitch she used when she was about to deliver bad news wrapped in a bow. "Daddy," she said. She never called me Daddy unless she wanted something or was about to twist a knife. "About tomorrow. Colton's boss is coming, Mr. Whitfield. He's the senior partner at the firm. This is huge for us, like career-defining huge." I stirred my chili. "Sounds nice. I'll bring the pecan pie, your mother's recipe." There was a pause, a long one, the kind of pause that has teeth. "That's the thing, Dad. Colton and I were talking, and we think it might be better if you came on Friday instead, like a separate little dinner. Just us, more intimate." I set the spoon down. "You're uninviting me from Thanksgiving." "I'm not uninviting you. I'm rescheduling you. You're rescheduling your father from a family holiday." Another pause. Then her real voice came out, the one without the sugar. "Dad, look. Mr. Whitfield is old money. His wife went to Vassar. They summer in Nantucket. And you. I love you, Dad, but you're going to show up in your Carhartt jacket talking about concrete mix and deer season. Colton can't afford that right now. He's up for partner. We need this to be polished. We need it to be polished. We need it to be polished. And perfect doesn't include stories about pouring foundations in August." I looked at my hands. They were rough, scarred across the knuckles, permanently stained around the cuticles from 40 years of concrete dust and rebar. These hands had built the house she was throwing her fancy dinner in. These hands had signed the check for her wedding, her cars, her husband's law school loans. "I built that house, Meredith," I said quietly. "Dad, please don't start with that. The deed is in my trust. I pay the mortgage. I pay the property tax. I paid for the kitchen you're cooking that turkey in, and we appreciate it," she snapped. "But appreciation doesn't mean I have to let you embarrass us in front of the most important dinner of our lives. Colton says, Colton says, Colton says." What does Colton ever say that doesn't involve my money or my absence? You're being dramatic. "Friday, Dad. Come Friday. I'll make a roast." She hung up. I sat there in the quiet of my apartment. It was a small place, 2 bedrooms above a hardware store on Maple Street. I could have lived anywhere. When I sold Prescott Construction 5 years ago for $45 million, my accountant told me to buy a condo in Scottsdale. I told him I liked the hardware store. I liked the smell of sawdust drifting up through the floorboards. I liked the smell of sawdust drifting up through the floorboards. I liked being close to the earth. I should have accepted it. I should have eaten my chili, watched the football pregame, and shown up on Friday like a good, obedient old man. That's what the old Hank would have done. The Hank who felt guilty for missing Meredith's school plays because he was pouring a foundation at 4 in the morning. The Hank who thought money could substitute for the years he wasn't there. But something about the way she said polished stuck in me like a splinter. I wasn't polished. I was real, and that used to be enough. I decided to go anyway, not to cause trouble, just to see. I needed to see what was so important that a daughter would erase her father from Thanksgiving. The house at 19 Birchwood Lane was lit up like a magazine cover. Meredith had hung garlands on every window. The lawn was raked clean, the walkway lined with those solar lanterns she'd ordered on my credit card. Through the front window, I could see the long dining table set for 8. Crystal glasses, cloth napkins folded into little fans, candles everywhere. It looked like a photograph. I parked my truck, a 2004 Chevy Silverado with 230,000 miles and a dent in the tailgate from backing into a concrete mixer in '09, 2 houses down. I didn't want to block any of the Audis and Lexuses in the driveway. I sat in the cab for a minute, holding a bottle of wine I'd picked up. Nothing fancy. A California Zinfandel from the grocery store, $12. It was good wine, honest wine. I walked to the front door and rang the bell. Through the frosted glass, I could see figures moving, hear laughter. I rang again. The door opened a crack. Meredith's face appeared. Her hair was in an updo. She wore a black dress that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill. She looked beautiful. She also looked furious. "What are you doing here?" she hissed. "It's Thanksgiving, Meredith. I'm your father." Her eyes dropped to my clothes. I was wearing clean khakis, a flannel shirt I'd ironed that morning, and my good boots. To me, I looked respectable. To her, I might as well have been wearing a burlap sack. "Dad, I told you Friday. And I told you this is my family and my holiday. Let me in." She glanced over her shoulder. Then she stepped outside and pulled the door shut behind her. The cold air hit us both. "Listen to me very carefully," she said, her voice low and sharp. "Mr. Whitfield is in there right now. His wife is in there. Colton's entire future is sitting at that table. If you walk in there looking like a foreman at a job site, it's over. Everything we've worked for." "Everything we've worked for," I repeated. "What exactly have you worked for, Meredith? What has Colton worked for? Because from where I stand, I'm the one who's been working. I'm the one who's been paying." Her jaw tightened. "Don't do this, Dad. I brought wine." I held up the bottle. She looked at it like I was holding a dead animal. "We're drinking Bordeaux tonight. Not grocery store wine. Just go home. Please, I'll call you tomorrow." She turned, slipped back inside, and locked the door. I stood on the porch for a long time. The wind picked up. I could smell turkey through the walls. I could hear Colton's loud, rehearsed laugh. I could hear a man I didn't know, Whitfield, probably, telling a story about a ski trip in Aspen. I set the wine bottle by the doormat. I didn't want to carry it anymore. It felt like something I should have been ashamed of, and I refused to be. Instead of walking back to my truck, I walked around the side of the house. I didn't plan it. My feet just moved. The backyard was dark except for the light pouring through the large kitchen windows. I stood behind the old maple tree, the one I planted the year they moved in, and looked inside. The scene was everything Meredith wanted it to be. Colton was at the head of the table, carving the turkey with theatrical precision. He was wearing a vest and tie. His hair was slicked back. He looked like a mannequin. Meredith sat beside him, laughing at something Mrs. Whitfield said, tilting her head in that practiced way. Then Colton raised his glass. I couldn't hear every word, but the windows were cracked for ventilation, and his voice carried. "I want to thank everyone for being here. This home, this table, this life. Meredith and I built it from the ground up. No handouts, no safety nets, just hard work and vision. That's the Prescott way. The Prescott way." He'd taken my name and claimed my story. He didn't build anything. He couldn't hang a picture frame without calling someone. I wrote a check for $350,000 for the down payment on that house. I set up the auto draft for the $5,400 monthly mortgage because Colton said his associate's salary was irregular. I paid for the renovations, the landscaping, the furniture. Every single thing in that room existed because of me. And he was standing there telling his boss he built it from scratch. My phone buzzed. A bank notification. "Schedule transfer alert. $5,400 to Home First Lending will process at midnight. Reply stop to cancel." I stared at the screen. Then I stared at the dinner party. Then I touched stop and hit send. I was about to leave when I heard voices from the side patio. Low voices. Tense voices. I pressed myself against the brick wall. "Is the old man gone?" Colton asked. "He's gone," Meredith said. A lighter clicked. She'd started smoking again. "Good. If Whitfield saw him, if he realized the house isn't ours, that the assets aren't in our names, the partnership is done. I need Whitfield to believe I'm the real deal." "He believes it," Meredith said. "And after Tuesday, it won't matter." "Tuesday." Colton exhaled. "You sure about the doctor?" "Dr. Kendrick will sign whatever I put in front of him. I already told him Dad is having episodes, forgetting names, getting confused, getting aggressive. The old man trusts me. I'll tell him we need to update his insurance forms. He won't read the fine print. He never does." My blood turned to ice. "The document is a durable power of attorney," Meredith continued. "Once I have it, I control everything. His bank accounts, his medical decisions, his living situation. Remove him to Pinecrest, that state-funded facility outside Reno. No cell phones, no visitors unless we authorize it. He disappears. Nevada, Colton whispered. That's 2,000 miles. That's the point. If he's local, someone visits. Jamie might ride his bike there. We need him gone, Colton. Gone and quiet. I couldn't breathe. My own daughter was planning to have me declared incompetent. She was going to steal my house, my money, my freedom. She was going to ship me to a facility in the desert like I was cargo. What about the gambling situation? Meredith asked. Colton's voice dropped. Moretti called again this morning. He said he knows where Jamie goes to school. He said kids get hurt crossing streets. Moretti. That wasn't a bank. That was the kind of name you hear on the docks at 2 in the morning. My son-in-law wasn't just bad with money. He was in deep with people who break bones for a living. How much? Meredith asked. 280,000. Plus the VIG. It's climbing every week. Once we have the power of attorney, we mortgage the house to the limit. Pay Moretti. Ship Dad off. Clean slate. And Jamie's college fund? Meredith laughed. A dry, dead sound. That's been gone since March, Colton. You gambled it on that boxing match in Atlantic City. Remember? My grandson's college fund. The $120,000 I'd set aside in a custodial account. Gone. Bet on a boxing match. I closed my eyes. I felt tears on my cheeks, but they dried fast. The grief burned away and left something harder underneath. Something I hadn't felt since the days when crooked inspectors tried to shut down my job sites, and I fought them in court until they choked on their own corruption. I backed away from the wall. I moved through the yard silently. I had spent 40 years walking construction sites in the dark. I knew how to be invisible. As I reached the driveway, the garage side door opened. A figure stepped out carrying a trash bag. It was Jamie, 16 years old, tall and thin, wearing a wrinkled dress shirt like he'd been forced into it. He saw me and froze. Grandpa, he whispered. Mom said you left. I heard everything, Jamie. I know what they're planning. His face crumbled. He dropped the trash bag and walked to me quickly, checking over his shoulder. Grandpa, you have to get out of here. They're crazy. Dad owes money to bad people. There are men calling the house. And Mom, she keeps telling everyone you have dementia. She practices the story. She tells her book club you forget who she is. They took your college fund? Jamie looked at his shoes. It's gone, all of it. Dad bet it. And Grandpa, they sold your tools. I felt the ground shift. What tools? The ones you kept in the garage. Your grandfather's hand planes, the Stanley levels, the toolbox with your initials. Mom said they were taking up space. She called a guy from an antique shop. He gave her $200 for everything. $200. For tools that had been in my family for 3 generations. For the hand planes my grandfather brought from Pennsylvania when he started his first carpentry shop in 1951. For the toolbox my father gave me the day I poured my first foundation. She sold my history, my heritage, for the price of a dinner at one of her restaurants. There's something else, Jamie said. His voice was small. You know how I never bring friends over when you visit. It's not because I don't want to. Mom forbade it. She said if my friends from the academy met you, I had to introduce you as the handyman. She said having a grandfather in construction would ruin our image. She said people would think we were blue-collar. I looked at this boy, my grandson, carrying shame he shouldn't have to carry, being taught to lie by the people who are supposed to teach him honor. I put my hands on his shoulders. Listen to me, Jamie. I need you to go back inside. Don't say a word. Pack a bag. Hide it under your bed. When you see me walk through that front door again, you come to me. Can you do that? You're coming back? Oh, yes. I'm coming back. Oh, yes. I'm coming back. And I'm bringing the storm. Hope flickered in his eyes. Okay, Grandpa. He paused on the garage step. Happy Thanksgiving. He disappeared inside. I walked to my truck. I didn't start the engine. I pulled out my phone and dialed Stan Borkowski, my attorney. We'd worked together for 20 years. He'd helped me structure the trust. He'd warned me about Colton from the beginning. Stan, it's Hank. I need you to open the safe. Pull the file on Colton's background check, the one I buried when he married Meredith. And Stan, call Captain Reeves. We have a fraud case. How bad? Stan asked. Forged signature bad, organized crime bad, elder abuse bad. I'll have the file in 30 minutes. Meet me at the office. I drove to Stan's office. The building was dark except for the top floor. Stan was there with a stack of folders, a forensic accountant named Ingrid, and Captain Reeves of the county police. Here's what we have, Stan said, spreading documents on the conference table. Your PI, Donovan, pulled these last week. Colton took out a $200,000 loan from a shell company in Jersey tied to organized crime. He used a forged copy of the deed to your house as collateral. Your signature on the document is fake. The notary who stamped it lost his license 2 years ago. That's 3 felonies minimum, Captain Reeves said. There's more, Stan continued. Meredith has been moving money from their joint accounts into a crypto wallet. She's also been having lunches 3 times a week with a man named Graham Kessler. Kessler, I knew that name. He tried to underbid me on every city contract in the 2000s. A man with expensive suits and no integrity. She's telling Kessler she's about to come into a large inheritance, Stan said. She's lining up her next life before she's even destroyed the current one. I read the transcript of her text to Kessler. The old man won't last long in the facility. Once the assets are liquidated, I'll be free. Wait for me, darling. I set the paper down. I looked at my hands, the hands she was ashamed of. Execute it, I said. Clause 9 of the trust. Full revocation. Freeze the accounts. Cancel the cards. Draft the eviction notice. And Stan, make it effective tonight. Tonight? That's aggressive, Hank. They were going to ship me to a facility in Nevada on Tuesday. They threatened my grandson. They forged my name. Tonight isn't aggressive. Tonight is mercy, compared to what they deserve. Stan nodded. He picked up the phone. An hour later, I pulled up to 19 Birchwood Lane. I didn't park down the street this time. I parked right in the driveway, blocking Colton's leased BMW. The police cruiser pulled in behind me, lights off. I still had my key. Meredith thought I'd lost it. She'd changed the back door lock, but not the front. She was careless. Careless people always are. I slid the key in. The lock turned. I pushed the door open. The dinner was still going. Dessert now. Pumpkin pie. Not my mother's recipe, something from a bakery with a French name. Colton was pouring brandy. Meredith was laughing at something Mrs. Whitfield said. I walked into the dining room. My boots were heavy on the hardwood floor. Colton saw me first. The brandy spilled. His face went gray. How did you get in? I didn't answer him. I walked to the head of the table, the seat Colton had claimed, and I looked at him. One long look, the kind of look I used to give subcontractors who tried to cut corners on a foundation. Move, I said. He moved. I sat down. I placed my hands on the table. Rough, scarred, calloused hands on white linen. I looked at Mr. Whitfield. You asked who I am, I said. I'm Hank Prescott. I own this house. I own this table. I pay for the food you're eating and the wine you're drinking. And until about 2 hours ago, I paid for the life these two are pretending is theirs. Whitfield frowned. Prescott? As in Prescott Construction. The same. Whitfield's eyes widened. He turned to Colton. You told me your father-in-law was, you said he was retired, you said he drove a truck. I do drive a truck, I said, and I am retired. I retired after I sold my company for $45 million. But Colton here forgot to mention that part. He also forgot to mention that the deed to this house is in my trust, that he's never made a single mortgage payment, and that he forged my signature to secure a loan from men who threaten children. The room went silent. Mrs. Whitfield put down her fork. I reached into my jacket, pulled out the file. I spread the documents on the table. The forged deed, the betting ledger, the wire transfers, the text messages. This is a forgery of my signature, I said, pointing. This is a record of $280,000 in gambling losses. And this is a text message from my daughter to her boyfriend, not her husband, her boyfriend, telling him she's going to put me in a state facility so she can liquidate my assets and run off to Europe. Meredith lunged for the papers. Dad, stop, you're confused. You're having an episode. I'm having clarity, I said, for the first time in 10 years. I looked at the hallway. Mr. Borkowski, please. Stan walked in. Behind him, Captain Reeves and 2 officers. The gasps around the table were audible. Mrs. Whitfield grabbed her purse. "I am Stanley Borkowski, attorney for the Prescott Family Trust," Stan announced. "I am here to serve an immediate eviction notice and to facilitate the arrest of Colton Prescott for forgery, fraud, and criminal conspiracy." Colton tried to stand. His legs gave out. He grabbed the table edge, knocking over a candle. Wax pooled on the linen like blood. "This can't be happening," he whispered. Captain Reeves stepped forward with handcuffs. "No!" Meredith screamed. "Colton, tell them! Tell them! Tell them it's a cake!" Colton looked at her. His eyes were empty. "It's not a mistake, Meredith. It's over." They cuffed him. They read him his rights. They walked him out the front door past the garlands and the solar lanterns, into the back of a squad car. Meredith stood alone in the ruins of her perfect dinner. The guests were already leaving, murmuring apologies, avoiding eye contact. Whitfield stopped at the door. He looked at me. "I'm sorry, Mr. Prescott. I had no idea." "Neither did I said. "Not until tonight." Meredith turned to me. Her makeup was ruined. Her updo was falling apart. She looked like a house with the facade stripped away, nothing behind it but rotting wood. "How could you?" she whispered, in front of everyone. "You've destroyed us." "You destroyed yourself, Meredith." "I just turned on the lights." "But where will I go? I don't have anywhere. I don't have money." "You froze everything. You mentioned a state facility in Nevada," I said. "I hear they have vacancies. Or you could try working. There's a hardware store on Maple Street. Good people there. They don't care what you wear." She stared at me with pure hatred. No tears of remorse, just the rage of someone who'd lost access to the ATM. "I hate you," she said. "I know," I said, "but hate doesn't pay the mortgage, and neither do you. Not anymore." I raised my voice toward the hallway. "Jamie, it's time." The bedroom door opened. Jamie walked out carrying a backpack and a duffel bag. He was wearing jeans and a hoodie. He walked straight to me without looking at his mother. "Jamie," Meredith cried. "Baby, tell him you want to stay with Mommy." Jamie stopped. He looked at her. His eyes were sad but steady. "You sold Grandpa's tools, Mom. Grandpa Henry's hand planes. And you told me to pretend he was the handyman. I don't want to pretend anymore." He turned his back on her. It was quiet, but it was final. I put my hand on his shoulder. "Let's go, son." We walked out the front door, past the candles and the lie of it all, into the cold November air. The squad car was gone. A tow truck was backing up to Colton's BMW. I helped Jamie into the Silverado. He tossed his bag on the floor and buckled in. I climbed into the driver's seat. The engine turned over with that familiar growl, rough, reliable, real. "Where are we going?" Jamie asked. "Home," I said. "My place. It's small. The radiator clanks, but the rent is paid, and nobody there will ever ask you to lie." "Sounds perfect," he said. I pulled away from the curb. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. I didn't look at the house that greed built. I looked at the road ahead and at my grandson beside me, checking the time on the old watch I'd given him from the glove box, a Hamilton that had been on my wrist the day I signed the papers to incorporate Prescott Construction in 1987. It was a little loose on his wrist. That was okay. He'd grow into it. The next morning I stood at the stove in my apartment frying eggs and bacon. The smell filled every corner. Jamie sat at the kitchen table doing homework, the Hamilton watch catching light from the window above the sink. My phone buzzed. County Detention Center. Meredith, using her one call. I looked at the phone. I thought about the facility in Nevada. I thought about my grandfather's hand planes sold for pocket change. I thought about a 16-year-old boy forced to call his grandfather the handyman. I pressed decline. Then I blocked the number. "Who was that?" Jamie asked. "Nobody," I said. "Eat your eggs." He took a bite. He looked at me with a full mouth and said something that hit me harder than anything Meredith had ever thrown. "Grandpa, this is the best Thanksgiving I've ever had." I turned back to the stove so he wouldn't see my face. I cracked 2 more eggs into the pan. The grease popped and spit. Outside the window, the first snow of the season was starting to fall on Maple Street. He was right. It was the best Thanksgiving I'd ever had, too. This story reminds us that real wealth has nothing to do with crystal glasses or French bakeries. It lives in the hands that build, the hearts that stay honest, and the people who love you not for what you can give them, but for who you are. Meredith and Colton made the mistake of thinking a flannel shirt meant weakness. They confused humility with helplessness. And they forgot the oldest rule in the book: don't bite the hand that feeds you, especially when that hand built everything you're standing on. If you were Hank, would you have given Meredith one last chance, or did she get exactly what she deserved? Tell me in the comments. And if this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe to Soul of Dad for more stories like this one. I'll see you in the next one.